What's happening, hardscapers? This is episode 330 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And on today's episode, we have Cycle CPA, Joe and Carla Policastro on the show. And we do an interview on their business, how they got started, their experience in scaling their business and working together as husband and wife, and advice that they can give to anybody that is wanting to or is already working with their spouse in their business. Now, Cycle CPA has been a long time supporter of the How to Hardscape podcast, and I cannot thank them enough. And if you've listened to this podcast, you've heard them. Bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services. They specialize in the green industry, which makes them a valuable resource for helping you with financial advice and industry benchmarks. A few times a year, they take over the How to Hardscape podcast and release an episode discussing a wide range of topics that they specialize in. But for this one, I really wanted to sit down with them and talk about their business a bit, because I know that there is going to be some takeaways to how they have scaled their business and also working together that can apply to the landscape industry, a landscape business also trying to scale. So I really wanted to tease some of that out. So if you are interested in their services, cyclecpa.com. The link is always in our show notes, but I would also follow them on Instagram at cycle_CPA. And if you're interested, they have an awesome Facebook group where they do webinars, posts, educational posts, and that's called Landscaping Accountant. I highly recommend you join that. I always love supporting a business that's giving back in terms of the educational content that they put out for free. So definitely, if you are looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, Cycle CPA, you'll want to start that conversation today. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Today, we're joined by Cycle CPA, Carla and Joe Policastro. You've heard them on the podcast multiple times. They've been big supporters of How to Hardscape, and I thank them for that. And Cycle CPA, bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, and I've interviewed them in the past. It's usually about bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, but today we're going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to get to know a little bit more about Carla and Joe and their life and starting the business and how they work together and a bunch of different topics. But Carla, Joe, thank you so much for joining me here.
Absolutely, Mike. Yeah, great to be here again.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get started to where this actually started from. Cycle CPA. I'm going to just throw out questions and you two decide who wants to answer them or ping pong off of each other, but let's go back to the beginning. Cycle CPA, how did it even come into conception that you guys decided that you were going to do this?
Yeah, so well, I'm the accountant of the team here, Joe and I, and CPA, but I started off my career at a local accounting firm here nearby, and we helped everybody under the sun. So I helped bakeries, factories, bicycle shops, whatever you name it. But because of the demographic, there were a lot of landscapers that would come into the office and just ask me questions and job costing questions, seasonality, because I'm in New York. So they were facing cash flow issues, and that's how I got to know the industry and really liked working with those individuals because they seemed very committed to their business, hardworking people, down-to-earth people. And really, it was nice for me to be able to help them answer questions, being an accountant, right? But I was limited there in how I could help the industry because I was helping so many other industries and really wasn't like a master at landscaping, right? But became very passionate because I could see the need was there, with all the questions that they were asked and that person-to-person, connection. Went off and worked at one of the largest firms in the country. But always had that in the back of my head, like, want to help these landscapers, using my accounting knowledge. I don't want to just be like a number cruncher. How can I help people, but with my accounting skills? So that's whenever, had the idea of opening up the firm with my husband, Joe, and, really getting that gratitude and pleasure out of helping business owners with their business journey, and their wins are our wins. So that's how it started off.
Where does the timeline fall between getting married, starting the business? Like what came first? And was it always a decision to kind of hop into business together?
Yeah, so we started the firm close to the end of 2019, and then we ended up getting married in 2021. And I think it was something that just business in general really interested, me and Carla. So, it was something that's always been kind of our goal. And myself coming more from an operations perspective. So that's really what I do here at the firm. Everything outside of the technical accounting side, I focus in on. So helping to bring on new team members, helping to um, introduce some of the new clients in regard to what our services look like. So all of those different components that go to running a company. Earlier on in my career, when I worked for the home care company, more on the operation side, I saw how useful it was when we had a lawyer that was actually specialized with working with home care companies, right? So she had a really good understanding of um, the different regulations that the company faced or had to deal with within that specific industry, and just in general, things that would come up. She was very good at handling it. So I think as Carla mentioned in regard to picking an industry, as a service provider and being able to be specialized, I think it was a no brainer for us. I think it creates efficiencies both internally where you know, like our team, they don't have to worry about understanding a whole bunch of industries, so it's easy to train our team. And then of course, even just from our clients, being able to, um, really dig a little bit deeper and really kind of help them, with their bottlenecks on the accounting side. So, but yeah, that's a little bit more of my background, really more on the operations.
Do you guys ever plan to kind of open up to more home service-based businesses outside of the green industry, or have you already started doing that in terms of broadening the scope of companies that Cycle CPA can handle?
That's a good question, Mike. And we actually get that, even as we're talking to just other people. I mean, it's I think there's so many companies out there still that I think we can help within the industry. And really we say green industry, so it is everything from tree care, irrigation, hardscape, outdoor living, all the way to lawn care, lawn maintenance. So there's there's so many companies I think to still be able to help within this industry. In the future, I think anything's possible. But for right now, I think we're just looking forward to just kind of double down, within this industry.
I think this is a good time to talk about perhaps the benefit of just Cycle CPA doubling down on the industry and what benefits that would bring somebody that's actually looking for bookkeeping and accounting. Before we kind of talk more about you guys, just because we're on the subject, what are the benefits of somebody looking for a bookkeeper or accountant that actually specializes in our industry?
At this point, Mike, we serve over 400 green industry business clients. We're super proud of being able to have that data, right? And I don't want to geek out about data, but um, if we're able to serve this industry and grow within this industry, then it's going to give us better data. So that way we can relay that information to business owners so we can help them make better business decisions. And so when it comes to doubling down, um, it means gathering better data for hardscape companies, gathering better data for irrigation and tree companies. So the more companies we're able to work with, the better insights that we're going to have in each. Now we can even get narrower, right? We say the green industry, but I what our goal is, we always keep in mind, okay, how can we better serve business owners? That's what we're here to do, business owners in the green industry. And um, if we get that data, then we're able to provide benchmark reports, like doing right now, right? Like we're looking at your numbers, comparing them to last year. So that's good. That's a good analysis tool that you can use in your business that you would be able to use if you just have QuickBooks for, and if you don't have an accountant, right? That's something that you can go and do right now. But now if you're with us, we can give you further analysis, right? That next set of data analytics that will help you, which is benchmarking. So for hardscape companies, we can say, okay, well, this is how you compare to other hardscape companies. And now we can introduce and take a step further. We can maybe divvy it up by region. So that's what our next goal is looking at hardscape company within different regions in the US and how they're operating and in the different service lines, right? And another thing is us being able to provide better training to our accountants, right? Because they're the ones that's going to be helping all the business owners make their decisions, do the accounting work. And if we continue to double down and understand the industry better and we're super committed, right? Then creating training programs that are rigorous, like landscaping accountant boot camp, right? When they first sign on as accountants to our team, then we're creating a team that really understands the industry as a whole, but the different service lines within it as well. And that's what they're looking for too. Accountants nowadays, they want to be fulfilled within their role. They want to be empowered to be able to talk with business owners and use their knowledge and help other people. Because at the end of the day, I think we all want to help each other, and um, providing better training to them, investing in software on our end that's going to, or utilizing software on our end that's going to allow us to give our accountants better tools they can use on a day-to-day basis, right? I know when we first started out, a lot of our benchmarks and KPI and metrics, we put it on the spreadsheet, Mike. It took us so long to prepare for a meeting. Um, but now we work with the software that connects with everybody's QuickBooks account, and we're able to pull data like this, right? For every company after we do the close for the month. So right now we just finished August close. We have all those numbers pulled into the software, which automatically updates the benchmarks every month, updates your budget. So we have budget versus actuals, updates the actuals. And it was like the equivalent of your team is in like a 2010 Ford truck and now they're driving a 2025 Ford vehicle, right? They feel much better in there and more efficient. And so we're able to, invest in better software and training when it comes to that as well.
And then also on the technical side, Mike, in regard to just how that client experience might look a little bit different, is things like the chart of accounts. Having a deep understanding of what a green industry chart of accounts is. How should some of these transactions be categorized? Also, just our team, between all of our team members, there's very little that we haven't seen in regard to whether it's dealing with some of the green industry field management softwares, and how that interacts
Right.
on the financial side, and just different questions in general that come up. And Carla touched on it briefly, Mike, but we there in many of our weekly team meetings here internally, we keep it very educationally focused, and part of that at times is, I know we have discussions and we brainstorm as a group, and we build in certain scenarios. And as an example, one of the topics could be how can we better prepare our clients for maybe some lower cash flow points in the slow season. So strategizing all those different options, whether it's to add additional services, adjust the way that they're receiving payments from customers, and so it's 30 people brainstorming and coming up with those coming up with those answers, and being able to really leverage that. And I think overall, I think you know, that's something that I hope companies take advantage of. And I was talking to a HR outsourced HR firm, and I think it's similar with a lot of outsourced companies where I think the goal is to be able to leverage their expertise, in the given topics. But yeah, I would say those are a couple of the things that maybe clients could experience a little bit differently working with a little bit more of a focused firm.
You guys have kind of gone off and alluded to a lot of the things that I'm sure a lot of our listeners experience in terms of scaling, in terms of bringing on new employees and introducing them to perhaps a new industry, or maybe they have some sort of expertise. Can you talk us through how you did allude to it a little bit there in terms of training, but like ongoing training or making sure that the accountants that you bring on are living up to a level of work that you guys expect from them in the business? How have you kept that standard as you scaled?
Definitely not an easy thing, Mike. We had to figure it out along the way as well. But starting off, it was a lot of me doing the training, right? Sitting in Zoom calls, going over industry specific items and how do you conduct a meeting? What is the jargon? How do we communicate certain things? And so it was a lot of one-on-one training before when we first started off. But during that time, I quickly understood that there's only one of me. And I needed to treat this like, okay, we're going to scale it. And how can we replicate this knowledge so that everybody gets the same uniform approach throughout the company in an efficient way, right? I can't train, these accountants for 6 months, right? And then they're going to get it. I need them trained up in about 3 months, right? So how do I lessen that learning curve? So we quickly signed off with a software called Trainual. And this is a software that green industry companies can use as well. And you're able to store all of your policies and training videos, written procedures for your company and assign it out to your staff members and have different milestones as they join the company. And so I started recording a lot of the training videos on there, creating policies from the transcripts as well, and using, web resources for training too, some of the written items. And as we grew and scaled the business, it wasn't just me. Joe and I are very lucky to have some top performers in our group that really care about what we're doing, that are just invested in the green industry as we do. And so they have also helped to create training along the way. Because as you grow and scale the company, the processes that you put in place day one is not going to take you all the way to 10 employees. And the processes that you put in when you're a 10 employee firm, it's going to take you all the way till you're a 30 person company, right? So you're not going to change these processes every month or however, but as you meet certain milestones, you have to continually update and upgrade. So I would say having that foundation there, having good people by our side, and knowing that we need to refine these processes as we go has really helped in that area.
I'm sure the two of you know, speaking to a bunch of green industry business owners, that a lot of people say that labor is the hardest thing to find, or just employees in general, good employees. What makes Cycle CPA, or what have you guys tried to do with Cycle CPA to make it an alluring company for accountants to actually come and work for you? And what would be the main sort of thing that you've tried to work on to keep accountants, to keep them at your at Cycle CPA, basically?
That's a great question, Mike. And I think this probably applies to most kind of companies. And something that I think Carl and I have realized is I think every team member is different. They have different goals. They have different dreams and different things that they want to accomplish maybe in the short term and in the long term. You might have someone that really wants to do anything possible to continually get promoted, work themselves up in the company. You might have another person that maybe they're more comfortable in their role that they're in because that's just the time that they're in their life. They're more focusing on certain other aspects of their life, or maybe that's just what they want. So I think it's really understanding what that specific team member wants, and no matter how big your team gets, giving each one of them that time and that focus, which really a lot of times is actually, is meeting with them. So whether you set aside time monthly, quarterly, trying to, have those touch points with them. And even as a firm, I think being able to, within the accounting industry, which is something that has been a good thing, is working remotely has allowed us to not just look for people right in our town that are good candidates, but look all throughout the country. And I look at hundreds of resumes before we hire people, looking for very specific things, looking for the technical side, and making sure that they hit those points. Then also, okay, is this person really, as Carla mentioned, are they really going to care? Are they really going to, help our clients reach their goals? So Mike, I think it's just giving them that attention and that opportunity to really support them in what their goals are. And the first couple of months, I think within any company, I think is very important to do everything that is in your control as an owner to make sure that you're putting them in the best position to succeed, which a lot of times is training, is allowing them to understand your specific company processes and how you do things, making sure that that's being communicated to them. Because you never want to be in the position as an owner where you don't have those processes and you don't have those things set up, and you might find yourself 4 or 5 months into it and say to yourself, this team member may not be performing as well as I would have hoped. You want to at least be in a position where you know that you did everything possible that you could do to put them in a good position. And then the reality is, there's the saying that a lot of people have, right, where it's, you um, hire slow, fire fast, right? So it's, if someone's not the right fit for you, I think it's perfectly okay for them to go find another opportunity that they're going to flourish in, right? But it may just not be with your firm. So, um, but I think, again, like kind of going back to some of the benefits, I think working remotely, I think people really enjoy that. It's not a good fit for everybody, but for some, especially those that maybe are starting a family, I think there are definitely certain benefits, to it as well. So.
Yeah. We, Joe mentioned um, being aligned with their goals, right? What is your goals? What are things that you like about the company in your role here? What are things that you dislike? Or, is there maybe a client that maybe you feel like it's not a good fit to work with, right? And we have quarterly huddles to discuss that stuff with the team. And that's really how we stay up to date with that. And when we onboard an employee, within the first week, they get like a welcome gift basket sent to their house. We set them up, a lot of the time we'll set them up with a computer, their monitor. And so they feel, okay, I'm part of the team, they get merch from us too. And so I think that sending them a gift basket or something that they can enjoy with their kids or their family adds that extra personalized touch. And then as far as support, they meet with our manager every day. They have a meeting with them for the first few months. So that way, any questions that they have, any training, happens during that time. So um, I think that the support is very important, like Joe said, because then you could feel good about, okay, if you do end up, having to let them go and go in a different direction, you know that you did everything in your power to help them be successful at the company.
What does the company structure look like with Cycle CPA at the moment in terms of like different roles within in the business? Because you mentioned manager there, there's the two of yourselves, and then there's accountants. What does the sort of structure just help me visualize the business there?
We even over the time that we've run the company, there's been multiple things that Carl and I've kind of thought about. There's some accounting firms that operate more in kind of a pod structure where you might have, certain smaller groups within the larger firm. And we've kind of we haven't really done something like that because I think part of what we like, especially even what we encourage throughout the firm, is just kind of the free flow of information and questions, and having the ability to kind of speak with a team member that may specifically be good with a specific task or maybe very familiar with something. So, as a firm, we have the manager, and then on the tax side, we have a tax manager, a tax supervisor. But on the accounting side, we have the manager, we have two supervisors, and then we have senior accountants, and then bookkeepers. So, really, as part of that too, our goal is we want to be as much of a cost effective option as possible for companies. Because on one side of it, I think as any companies, especially as a hardscape company, you want to be able to price your work where it can be fair to the customer, but on the other side, it's balancing that line between making sure that you can also pay your team well, right, and make sure that you're putting them in a fair position as well. So we try to really design a structure where, if there are those tasks that maybe one of our junior accountants or bookkeepers can handle, we do want to be able to leverage them, and to make it as cost effective while also, trying to really have those people, especially as we grow, that can really help with not only supporting them, but also with any questions that they or our clients might have.
And I asked that because you two had a baby fairly recently, and that can be difficult in a time of scaling a business. So what kind of things did you, and we're running short on time here, but take as little or as long as you want with this. What kind of things did you want to have in place before you knew that this time was coming, where a baby is going to take, especially the two of you being husband and wife in a business, is going to take you out of the business quite a bit there. What kind of things did you want in place to help you through that time period?
We planned for full delegation of my tasks. So everything off my plate, just because obviously I'm the one that's going to be involved with, giving birth and taking care of the baby afterwards. And so we set a plan in place to, between, the managers, supervisors, and Joe, me training them on how to handle my tasks while I'm out. One of the big things were, and it wasn't easy for me to delegate off. I'm a really good delegator. It was just this one thing, which was the kickoff calls. So the initial call that we have with the client, and they're getting started with services with us, which is still my favorite. I don't do it too much because I actually, um, ended up delegating that out indefinitely, at that time. But it's just, getting to know the business owners, getting to know their goals, and welcoming them to our team, and vice versa. So, just having that plan in place, and I don't we didn't really delegate any of Joe's work out because we understood, like, that was the sacrifice. We can't both be out. And I told Joe, I was like, well, you at least have to be off the day, I'm giving birth and like the next day. And he's like, no, I can go back to work the next day. It's okay. And I felt like he felt that responsibility because we were both in the business, working in the business. But um, so, having a husband-wife team that's both involved in the business, I think it does come with some sacrifice when it comes, to that, especially if, I was gonna completely be off for a couple of months. So that's really how it rolled out.
Last question for you guys, and I'll let you go. What is one piece of advice you'd give to somebody who may be just starting their business or maybe wanting to bring their husband or wife into the business in some sort of role to work with one another? Do you have a piece of solid advice to help them work with their significant other?
Yeah, I'll start with with something, and I think working with your spouse, or just in family in general, I think has its positives and negatives to it. But one of the things that I feel like, and Carla might, interested to kind of hear your perspective as well. But I think having different tasks and different roles within the company, so that in essence, you know, almost like different departments, right? So you're not really crossing paths on a day-to-day basis as much. So we can still work together in regard to strategy and some of those higher level items and planning. But a lot of that day-to-day stuff, I think, just trying to understand as well, like, what are the strengths of you and your spouse, and trying to really fit that into the company, and also being realistic as well, because I think there's a lot of companies out there, especially in the you know hardscape industry, where you might have a spouse where they may want to help you with the company because they love you, right? And they want to be able to support you, but they they may not actually it, it may not be as fair to them to actually do some of the roles that they are performing. So I think trying to figure out what is realistic to actually have your spouse complete, in order for the company to be able to move forward, right? In order for you to keep growing. So I think just kind of being able to keep things separate, I think, has helped us.
No, I agree with you, Joe. Having keeping separate tasks is definitely super important because there's already a lot of things in our life that can create conflict in a relationship, and throwing a business into it just increases that probability. So I think staying in your lane, working off of each other's strengths, and if you're a part, you have a partner, there's definitely strengths that you can work off of from each other, right? And maybe the wife is just very good with communicating with others. Maybe they can do some sales calls or intro calls, or collecting payments from clients or whatever that is, right? So I think looking at the strengths, and just a practical tip on our end that took us, it must, it'll sound pretty simple, but I think one of the things is like separating, business from your personal life, because I think, you know, earlier on, I think, we would be having dinner or we'd be at the park or something, and then one of us would bring up, something in regard to the business, and you're just like, yeah, I don't want to talk about that right now. I'm kind of enjoying myself and my family, or I'm enjoying my dinner, so, putting boundaries on that earlier on and communicating that to one another, what your boundaries are, and scheduling meeting time, because um, it may be easy for you to barge into somebody else's room throughout the day or workspace because, you feel comfortable with one another. But that person may be working on a project, maybe calling a client during that time, have a scheduled meeting. And Joe and I, that's something that we still work on is like, we should, stick to our primary meeting times. But, and a lot of these things, they are difficult, but it's something that you can work on and can be done.
Well, Carla and Joe, I still have many questions to get to for a future interview if you'd ever want. Lots of different topics on my mind, especially from what we just talked about today. But I do want to say thank you so much for continuing to support How to Hardscape and giving your time to give back to our audience too with all the takeover episodes, these interviews. So thank you so much. Where can our audience go to find out more about Cycle CPA? Where do you want to send them to? And any closing remarks there?
Thank you, Mike. I mean, we always enjoy working with you. I mean, it's just what you do in the industry is just phenomenal stuff, and so we also want to just thank you as well, Mike. And as for Cycle CPA, you can go to cyclecpa.com, and that's where you can see a little bit about our firm, and and then you can always reach out. Our contact info's there. You can schedule a call there as well.
Yeah, super grateful for your support, Mike. Thank you for all you do. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, guys. Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Once again, cyclecpa.com for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services. Get that conversation started today. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services. Follow them at cycle_CPA on Instagram and join that Facebook group, Landscaping Accountant. And we look forward to meeting you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.